Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast. Welcome back to you too, Ben. How are you?
G'day, mate. How you going? Look, I think we just moved straight on from the footy. Straight on.
Both lost.
Well done, girls. Thank you for making half my weekend happy.
Well, I can't even say that. 2 losses. So there we go. We'll move on. The people who don't like the footy banter will be super excited. But Ben, we have got an upcoming launch of our course, which we do a couple of times a year.
Yes.
And so for that, what we're doing is asking our community to help us get to 2,000 reviews. We're 10 away at the moment. As we record, we're 1,990. So what we're encouraging folks to do is to give us a rating. We say this all the time. We hope it's 5-star, but if it's 1-star, give us a reason why. We're certainly prepared to read it out. But if you have 5 stars and you don't want to write anything, you can also just click the stars and don't write anything. But we're on a race to 2,000. Now, as part of that, I'm going to read out a couple for the next few weeks. And for those that we do read out, we're going to give a free copy of, free access to our Start and Build course, just to get people across what we're doing in mid-April. But the first one is from Tradie M. It says, "Wow, well done, Bryce and Ben, and all the staff behind the scenes." The reason I picked this is because whenever someone acknowledges our team, Ben, we always like to prioritize that. Talk about informative, genuine, productive advice. Anyone who is thinking of investing in property needs to take the time to listen to this podcast and try and catch up on all the episodes. I've been listening now for over 12 months. I'm a tradie who loves real estate. I listen in the ute on the way to work, on the tractor at the farm, or sitting on the bobcat spreading topsoil.
Love it.
My wife and I have been investing in property since the age of 20. We are now in our mid-30s and we still listen and learn from these guys. Doesn't matter if it's your first or your 30th property, catch up on as many episodes as you can and take in as much as possible. Keep up the great work, Property Couch. Ben and Bryce should have some involvement in helping write the school curriculum and help teach our children about the opportunities that come with property investment. That'd be cool one day, wouldn't it, Ben?
We'd love it.
Thanks for everything, lads and ladies, Matt and Heidi. So there you go, Matt and Heidi. Write into us, info@thepropertycouch.com.au. We will send you a link to sign up and have a look at that. And because of FOMO, Ben, it's more important than ever that you understand the fundamentals to make sure you avoid it. Now, the second one is from NS Racing. A truly meaningful impact. The value TPC has afforded us is hard to overstate. I'm so thankful I subscribed just prior to buying our first home. The lessons on asset selection, etc., were an integral part of our decision making, and then and always will be in the future. All the content is fantastic. The weekly listen keeps the property top of mind and our goals in clear focus. I also love all the Mindset Minute work, in particular James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Yes.
Thank you. We like James Clear too. So
if you're
there you go, folks.
New to the community, check out James Clear's episode and check out his book. It's a ripper.
It is a ripper. Roughly December 19. I think it was the beginning of December 2019 was when we had James Clear. It is a must listen to. So there you go, folks. Thanks to those two for writing a review for us. We're going to send you a copy of the Start and Build course that you can get access to for free. And I'll continue to do this for the next few weeks. Ben, we've got a very special guest today. I'm super excited to get to it. But before we do, my Mindset Minute is still running through how to win friends and influence people. Did you think it would be still going all this time now, Ben, after going through this wonderful book? But it is still happening. So today, chapter 26, let the other person save face. Letting one save face. How important, how vitally important that is. And how few of us ever stop to think of it. We ride roughshod over the feelings of others, getting our own way, finding fault, issuing threats, criticizing a child or an employee in front of others without even considering the hurt to the other person's pride. Whereas a few minutes thought, a considerate word or two, a genuine understanding of the other person's attitude would go so far toward alleviating the sting. Even if we are right and the other person is definitely wrong, we only destroy ego by causing someone to lose face. The legendary French aviation pioneer and author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, That's as close as I could get, Ben.
Pretty
Wrote,
cool.
I have no right to say or do anything that diminishes a man in his own eyes. What matters is not what I think of him, but what he thinks of himself. Hurting a man in his dignity is a crime. Therefore, a real leader will always follow Principle 26. Let the other person save face. Ben, what do you think about that?
It's wisdom. That whole book is wisdom, mate. There's some ways you can approach things that just basically make the world a better place.
I know. It is the book, I reckon, that spawned a personal development industry. Warren Buffett says that it changed his life. Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, all of these people who I think are titans. Yeah. This was their titan.
Correct.
So if you haven't read this book, you should go and check it
Man
out.
before his time. He had some comprehension abilities beyond most, Bryce, beyond most.
And the thing is, he's got a number of books: How to Develop Self-Confidence and Influence by Public Speaking, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Those two are absolute classics as well. But the How to Start Worrying and Start Living, at the very least, is something you should check out. So there you go, folks. Mindset Minute theme today. We have got a very, very exciting guest, a returning guest today. We have the one, the only, Effie Zahos, the money queen. Let's cut to the chat that we recently had with Effie. All right, Ben, today we got a very special guest. I'm going to do the bio here because it's well worth the effort here. Canstar's editor-at-large, Effie Zahos, has more than 2 decades of experience helping Aussies make the most of their money. As one of Australia's leading personal finance commentators, Effie has a knack for making money matters simple. In a career spanning 25 years, she's covered just about every money topic, from budgeting and saving to investing and retirement. As the money expert for the Today Show, Effie offers her insights into current money matters. Prior to joining Canstar, where she currently is, Effie was the editor of the Money magazine 20 plus years, Ben, and having helped establish it in 1999 after working as head researcher of Channel 9's Money Show. Effie is the author of a children's financial literacy book, The Great $20 Adventure, A Real Girl's Guide to Money from Converse to Louboutins, and now her third book is Ditch the Debt and Get Rich. She also sits on the board of directors for Extra, a not-for-profit organisation committed to building the financial capability of all Australians within a fair financial system. Effie is also the proud mother of 2 reformed spenders. We'll talk about more about that shortly, Ben. An avid podcast listener, she says her greatest fear is retiring in a polyester outfit and drinking cask wine. Welcome back to the property couch, Effie Zahos. How are you?
Yay, hello. Yay. So good to be back with you guys.
What a pedigree, hey? That's there's so much to talk about, but you've written a third book.
That's all we've got time for now, guys.
You've written a third book, so we're going to dive into that in our chat today. But before we do, can we talk about your greatest fear of retiring in a polyester outfit and drinking cask wine?
Yeah.
What's the backstory there?
Well, it wasn't my fear when I was 20, I can tell you that much. I was living the dream with that in my 20s. I wore polyester all the time, and I think I drank my fair share bit of cask wine, having grown up on the Gold Coast. But that's another story, another podcast. Look, it is a funny way, I guess, of saying my fear is not being prepared for later on. And what I mean by later on is that, and I know you've got such a big, vast degree of different listeners in age groups and so on. But if I can give kind of one tip, life moves fast. And you may be 20 and you may be thinking, who cares? But I used to think like that. I was 20 and I thought I'm invincible. I thought, who cares? I'll worry about that later. But the thing is, time does catch up, doesn't it, guys? And it moves fast. And my greatest fear is that we work hard, we play hard, and we're used to things in our life. We like a bit of comfort. There's always a balance with me. And balance is very important when it comes to your money matters. And I guess my greatest fear is that whilst I can enjoy all this now because I'm working and so on, if I'm not looking after the older version of me, then I will not be able to sustain what I'm doing. And I don't want to, and it was kind of a joke, because cask wine is very nice these days, actually. I don't mind it at all.
Nice blended wine there, isn't it?
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for that. Polyester, I draw the line. I'm not wearing that at all. It doesn't let you breathe. So it just enables me, so when I do get to that stage in my life, that I can continue doing what I'm accustomed to. And that could be whatever your, pleasure is, or whatever your basic necessity is. So it was a way for me, and it just popped in my head that I thought, yeah, I don't want to, be living in a polyester outfit and drinking cask wine, because I want to be able to enjoy my life, not just now, but later, and have that, comfort still there and not worry about money. And rich means so many different things to different people. So I just want to be comfortable. The best financial version of myself, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It does. Time does catch up on you. I've noticed it myself. I've always been a baby face, and I now said to my son on the weekend, hey mate, one day we can do the Amazing Race together, because we like watching that game. And he just looks at me and goes, Dad, you got way too much grey hair. You're too old. And by the time I get to do it, you won't be able to run around. So, which is interesting for me, because I'm thinking, oh, hang on, I've now got to relate to being middle-aged and also the things that you're talking about to make sure that we've got enough. But it kind of caused me to reflect on how I met you, Effie, because you may or may not remember this, but one of my colleagues said, oh, look, Effie from the Money magazine has asked us to contribute an article. Would you be interested in doing it? I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, I could not jump at it quick enough. And so I did it. I put my heart and soul into it, and then I gave it to you, and you were gracious enough to publish it. And then you came up to our stand at the Home Buyer Show. Mm-hmm. Do you remember?
I do.
And you were chatting to my colleague Jason, and I think you thought he was the person that authored, and you said, and then you referred it to me as the one, and you did this double take because I looked like a baby in a suit at the time, and so I was reflecting on, I wonder what was going through your mind at the time. But you've been gracious and given me an opportunity, and been an opportunity to contribute to that great magazine.
I feel like I've discovered you. I feel like I deserve some kind of credit.
Well, that was before television. It was before all of these things. So I'm very grateful.
I guess to just touching on that point, when our relationship started and the stories that you would write, I mean, I feel they were quite groundbreaking. And this is, I guess, the honor of being in the industry for so long is just, I'm getting a great satisfaction on seeing what's happening in the financial world with I guess, commentators and journalists, experts like yourselves, and also just everyday Aussies, how financially savvy we're becoming. But the stories that you were doing way back there, I like to think that it was groundbreaking in the sense, how do you create a portfolio of properties to get in, say, 2,500 per month? I think was one of the cover stories that you guys did. And even back then, how to own property for $50 per week and doing it in a responsible way, and just showing people that the value of investing over time. I mean, now those stories are everywhere, but you've got to remember this was, our relationship spans over 20 years. So it was nice to get that started.
Well, to give you some kudos, it was $2,500 per week, and it was the second. It was the second. I think, if my memory serves me correct, second highest selling Money magazine because of the cover. Yeah. And so Ben and I used the strength of that intel that you gave us to then name our book, and we've obviously got How to Retire on $2,000 a week. So, but that was part of the field research to know that this is actually a message that people want to hear. Which is obviously flown onto the fact we've done over 25,000 sales of our book, which we're really proud of. So, but again, thanks for the the edification there. But
it doesn't stop, Bryce. It doesn't stop, because I'm actually putting the finishing touches on a Canstar article for you right now on rent vesting. So keep an eye out for that and subscribe to the Canstar, and you'll get we love the numbers, right? At the end of the day, the numbers tell the story, and I think that's what you're referring to, and it's obviously a nice little segue into what you put into this book in terms of showing more about the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So how does it differ from the other book, From Converse to Louboutins, A Real Girl's Guide to Money? I mean, making money no matter what gender you are is all the same. But what I wanted to focus on in this book was more the actual strategies. From my experience, people are time poor, and they just want to, it's almost show me the money, show me how you calculate this. And then you can take what you want or not agree with the methodology. You can do whatever you like with it. But the thing is, there's a lot to be said by just one simple table. What is it? A picture says 1,000 words. Well, you better believe a graph says a lot more than that. So what this book was about was really narrowing it down, doing some sums. Of course, you've got to make some scenarios around them, and then just giving the information that consumers can then walk away with. But before I even touched on that, I mean, I've always been fascinated about why we do what we do with money. I mean, there's a chapter in there, you know, how to get rid of debt fast. I can talk about how to get rid of getting debt fast and show you graphics and numbers and show you how to refinance and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you don't address how did I get here in the first place, there's no point me even showing you the fastest way to pay debt, because you're going to get back into that situation. So it's really important to know, well, why do I do this? Why is it that some people clear a credit card, they get that monkey off their back finally, and then only to find next month they've racked up the debt again? Why do you do that? So I actually worked with a behavioural economist, because that's such a specialised area. And I've learned a lot through him as well. Phil Slade, a bit of nod to him. He's is a behavioural economist and psychologist, and really opened my eyes as well as to, you know, there's more to money than dollars and cents.
Yeah, money is simple, behaviour is hard, and people build spreadsheets and systems. But when they're actually making purchase decisions, they are nowhere to be seen. It's insecurity, it's significance, it is a whole range of things that are running through our mind at the point of sale that we need to actually get in front of. And what's interesting is Ben and I have talked about this, and it's to your point, where we build plans for people to retire on $2,000 a week. It's no secret, right? And to be frank, it's actually not rocket science. You know, buy this property at this date, at this price point, and you know, it's not that hard. But then when we catch up with the people 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the track, how's it all going? And they've derailed for no obvious reason. Now, there's obviously a backstory to it, but largely it's because the behaviour hasn't been addressed. But then you talk to them about, well, we need to address your money beliefs. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll get to that someday, because talking about money beliefs is perceived to be, you know, like a vitamin, whereas the how to is the painkiller. That's the pain I want solved now. But it's actually once people realize that it's the behavioral stuff that is the real painkiller. If you solve that, everything is downstream from that.
And it's a case of knowing those triggers. I mean, what I find now is that institutions are getting very savvy when they're developing products. So, you know, without pointing out names, there are some products that trigger spending without you even realize that you're spending. And others actually help you save and invest without you really realizing that you're doing it. And they're great. They're great disruptors. But I feel the odds are stacked against a lot of younger investors or buyers coming through, because it's getting so much harder out there to understand those triggers that are getting you to spend. And just simple things like, for example, you know, one of the tips in the book is like, don't leave your credit card on file online. And it's got nothing to do with safety reasons. Don't worry, if your card gets fraud, you'll get the money back. There's systems in place. The biggest trap here for me is that one cart shopping. If your credit card's there, you've dumped all your things in your basket. And let's face it, a lot of us do, especially during COVID, we were kind of cruising through websites, putting things in our basket with no intention of shopping. I mean, sometimes I'd have in my cart $10,000 worth of stuff. There's no way I was going to buy it, but it just felt good. Just, you know, go there. Now, if my credit card details are saved in that one click through processing, it would mean I just press that button and bang, it's done. Whereby if I don't save it, I've got to pull it out, I've got to type it in, I've got to do that. And then I start thinking about, is this a good buy? So there's a lot of things that are coming out in the sense of product development, which is quite scary. And it's getting us into this society where we're getting paid, and then we wonder, why am I screaming? When's payday? When's payday? Because everything has come out on payday to accommodate what we want.
Yeah, those Amazon stores are a perfect example of that. You know, those health food stores where there's no paying. You literally just walk in, take anything off the shelf and walk out with your basket of goods, because it's tracking your every movement and knowing exactly what you're buying. And so they are definitely taking the friction out. And when you do take that friction out, you take the rational thought out, because it's an instant thought. It's a need it now type of mindset, and that's ultimately what happens. So that's their job. I mean, ultimately, retailers are about you buying their goods. And as you're saying, in terms of our job as championing having, a wealthier tomorrow, is about sort of making sure you learn the crafts and artwork of delayed gratification, and you have a future orientation. And you come back to your point earlier, Effie, about if people just realise that if they keep doing what they're doing, they'll have a 20 or 30% reduction on the income that they're earning now for the lifestyle that they want to keep living in retirement. Just not going to happen. So if they're aware of that, if you can bring that sort of future realisation into the present, that is going to also help with a consciousness. And once you've got that consciousness, hopefully that will start to move behavioural change that we need to sort of say, hey, a dollar saved is critical for your future wealth.
And I'm actually seeing a lot more of that, Ben, because, I mean, looking at, say, latest data, even by Investment Trends, that came out a couple of weeks ago, and basically it said that first-time investors jumped by 435,000. And I think 1 in 6 or 1 in 5 were under 25. And when you look at the amount of inflow of funds into exchange traded funds, ETFs, they had record years. I mean, and you look at what's happening now with younger investors, whether they're just jumping in without knowing all the full information, or whether they're actually, look, I'm getting some of my best stock tips by 17-year-olds. So that says something for me at the moment. I'm so happy to see that. I mean, my own son, who's 14, invested directly himself into a Vanguard ETF. And it took him all of 2-3 minutes. Now, obviously, it's in my name for tax purposes and so on. You've got to get all that checked out. But I was so proud of him when he looked at his bank statement and goes, Mum, what's his 15 cents? I go, well, that's your interest. And he goes, and literally, he got the statement, threw it in the lounge room, and I went, you better pick that up, mate. Okay, I'm not picking that up. And he had a bit of a laugh, and he goes, there's got to be a better return here. And then that's where, okay, he's ready now. I've spoken it to him for a lot of times, but he just hasn't got it. And he finally got it. And now what we do once every week, we log online, we have a look at his ETF investment, and he loves it. He loves seeing his return. Now, of course, we're in a rising market. I'm afraid to show him what will happen. I feel like we're, heading for maybe a bit of a downturn, just a bit overvalued. But this is the thing, I feel that we've become a lot more savvier over the past 12 months, especially because we were forced to. Whether it was because we lost our job, we lost our income, or whether because we realised we've got more time in our hands. I'm going to finally look at my, energy bill. I've got some time here today to do this. We found a way to make better of our situation, and that's great.
Yeah. Agreed.
Your book title talks about it's called "Ditch the Debt and Get Rich." Why the emphasis on ditch the debt? Because I mean, you see so many people, and you've been across your career and seen so many things. The emphasis on the debt, is there an assumption that you're just seeing lots of people just out of control with the debt?
Well, it's interesting. If you look at figures, we've never saved more than we have now over the past 12 months. But there is a big situation where the rich are getting richer. There are lots of people that made great opportunity out of COVID, and others that scraped every cent out of their super fund. And now I've got the situation where really they're renting, no super, and in a lot of cases may still be on a lower income, or maybe looking for work, or whatever the case may be. So to move forward, you've got to kind of go backwards a little bit and clean up the mess. So the whole book doesn't obviously stay on debt, but there is a process there where I focus on your money mindset. Let's get that right. Let's make you strong there. Then have a look at actual debt, and then the disruptors as well, to put you in a good position. And look, there's no magic formula to getting out of debt. You've got to want to do it. I mean, I can sit here and talk about Snowball methods, avalanche methods, zero balance transfer cards, the pitfalls on those. I can show you basically ways to do it, but you know what? Get your debt. Divide it by 12 or 24, what you think you're going to pay it off in that period, and knuckle down. It's as simple as that, because you won't be able to move forward or move to the next part of the book, which is the exciting bit for me, building wealth, if you've still got that monkey on your back.
Someone's in debt problems now. Do you subscribe to Debt Avalanche or Debt Snowball?
Look, for me, I know the logic logical place to start is if it's the highest interest rate, hit that first. But the highest interest rate, or even the largest debt, whatever the case may be. For me, it's a case of write all your debts down. What do you owe? What is the interest rate? So you know. And then because I'm more of a behavioural type of person, I want to focus on the smaller debt first. And that may be, let's say it's a $500 credit card. And let's say you've got a $4,000 personal loan. Pay off the smaller debt first, because that will make you feel good. And then put all the other repayments on minimum so you can funnel everything into that low debt, that low balance debt. Tick it off, and there's a great satisfaction about that, and then move through. But every person is different in how they approach it.
It's interesting you say that, because just for the listeners' benefit, a debt snowball is writing all your debts down in order of smallest to largest and tackle the smallest first and largest last, whereas debt avalanche is write all your debts down and put them in the order of the most expensive first and the least expensive last, and tackle it in that order. And any mathematician will tell you to do the debt avalanche. But I've actually matured a lot in this, and I'm actually, for anyone who's in debt challenges, I'm not talking about someone who's got good debt, productive debt, all those sorts of things. Someone who's mentally in debt challenges, I'm actually a fan of the snowball. And we didn't, and in the book we talked about not doing that, but I think over time I've matured in that, because people get into debt trouble in the behavior space, as you've clearly articulated. They don't get into trouble on the spreadsheet space. So I think if people can have those, as you described then, those quick wins, I've knocked one off, I've got some momentum here, and they've actually trying to counteract the way that they got into the problem in the first place. I actually think that's where the magic lives. But I'm aware that mathematicians and people with spreadsheets will go, you're mad. You got to do the most expensive first.
But that doesn't count if you break it, because, and the thing why I like going the smallest debt first is because it enables you, if you haven't got a bit of a cash cushion, to funnel some money there, because the whole system will fall apart if something blows. Like, I don't know, your tooth needs to be fixed, the tires, blow out on your car. You then borrow again and find yourself in that bad situation again. So it's important that you do have a cash cushion. In fact, I wouldn't even start paying off my debt until I had at least a couple of $100 sitting in account as my cash cushion, because then you feel a bit demoted if you start paying off your debt and then you realize, oh, this emergency's come up, I've got to take money back out again. Oh, I'm back to where I started again. So it is all about, the mind over money for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk about in the book, the money personalities. Is there a quick wrap of the personalities, or is it a too deep a dive?
I can do a very, very brief. I want to guess you guys, actually. I would say, I don't know, do you associate yourself to a squirrel, an owl, a sloth, a peacock?
Peacock. I'm not sure a peacock.
I'll probably be the owl.
Oh, because that means the investor, don't you, Ben?
I just follow the top 5% of what people do. I don't care about what the general public does. That's been my approach all along. I'm like, what's the best people in the world do what they do? Yeah. And I try and mimic them. That's my science.
Model what works.
I think I talk about these money personalities, and I certainly didn't make them up. They're out there. I mean, some of the animals I came up myself, the sloth as the debtor, because they're slow. They're actually very clever animal, gorgeous animals, but they're slow, and debt does weigh you down. And that was kind of the relationship there. You do cross over between personalities. And there are also pros and cons for each one. There's no wrong one to a certain extent. But I mean, a lot of people have come up to me and said, oh, yeah, definitely the squirrel. I save everything. I go, well, yes, you save, but are you investing? And it's quite funny in a sense that a lot of people think that, just by saving, I'm building wealth. And we know there's not that. And then there's a bit in the chapter there about fear of jumping in can be just as bad as FOMO. And it's that, why are you afraid to jump into investing? Why is it that you're only saving? Because, I mean, look, the best rate I think you can find now is 1.35 for 4 months, and good luck with that. Once you put your marginal tax rate in and inflation going backwards. So it's about, how do I overcome my fear of jumping in? So being a squirrel is fine if it's in moderation as well. And you can be a cross. You can be a spender and an investor. And then when you have a relationship and you throw your partner in there, then this whole other kind of magic happens as well, as how do you then build wealth with someone who may be completely opposite to you?
Roger Montgomery is someone I know that you use for your publications, but he came on our podcast and he said something very profound. He said, my mum taught me that if I don't have cash to pay for something that I want, I shouldn't buy it. But he goes, that's spending, not investing.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, but if I'm investing, I can use other, to paraphrase, other people's money to invest, but I don't use debt to spend. And I thought that's a really clever distinction to help people understand some conditioning that we would have had from many, many generations. If you don't have cash, you don't buy it. Well, except for investing.
Well, the thing is, these days we don't have cash at all. It's all digital. So we are working in a different environment altogether. For me, a good indicator is, I use a 48-hour rule before I jump into anything. And in that 48 hours, do I want it? Do I need it? Cross it off and so on. Can I get it by someone else? Can I borrow it? Can I buy it secondhand? Cross it off. And then if I still want it after 48 hours, then go for it. Knock yourself out. But when it comes to spending instead of investing, or even saving, it's the cost foregone. So often I'll divide the item by what I earn per hour. And then I tell you what, do that and you won't spend a cent again, because you'll start questioning, what? I worked a whole day for that?
Yeah.
No, but if I work a whole day and put it there, then in 1 day or 2 days, and I'm exaggerating here, I'll get X much more back. So it's just a case of playing with your mind, because our time is valuable. We work very hard. Put it into your spending and see what your time equates to.
I say that we've used that a lot, and we continue to keep building out on that behavioural change there, Effie. And I think I always say to people, what do you put as an hourly rate on your social time? $100 an hour. Good, because that's what I want it to be. Like, I want people to, because what we're also talking about here is not squirreling away everything, because some people are earning, okay living. Australia is a very lucky country. So you've still got to smell the roses along the way. It's just about whatever you do by trapping that surplus, how hard is that surplus working for you?
Yeah.
So there's a choice that you have with that money. You can, as you say, save it and you get 1.35%. Well, really, how hard's that working versus what other opportunities do you have? And then you move up the risk scale, but you also move up the opportunity scale in terms of making that money work harder for you. And I think that's the message that, you portray really nicely in terms of trying to get that message out there, that you won't save your way to retirement. But what you will do is, if you put your money, if you make your money work harder for you and you trap and you understand the value of money, which is, as you put it, into an hourly rate of what you earn, and you match it up even about what your working hours, what you earn compared to what your investment is earning on an hourly rate. You put those two things side by side and it's material to your thinking in terms of it really does help change behavior. So I think that's very powerful and you should be commended for that.
Thank you.
If you talked about your son having that opportunism, the confidence to go and invest, I think, do you think that plays, because you've seen a whole range of generations, because if you talk about my dad, his only goal was to pay off his home because he was brought up in the depths of the Great Depression. My generation, your generation, Ben, we remember the recession we had to have. Whereas your son and a lot of the people who have never experienced economic challenge just think that it's normal to take measured risks, and it's normal to actually try and better my future. So have you seen any observations across generations in your career that sort of confirm or deny any of that thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head as far as those, boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Zs, and so on. We've all kind of got our different money strategies. You look at, say, someone like a 14-year-old, he's only seen the market go up, 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 up. He thinks it's raining money all the time. And in a lot of cases, you've got people in their 20s and 30s, I see, that they're not going to put their wealth or buy a property. Either they feel it's way out of their realm, or they've got a better way to invest, whether that be through their business. I mean, you have a look at where a lot of wealth is with younger people too. It is in themselves. They are their biggest asset. It is their own jobs that they've got, and that goes in there. So sometimes it's hard to get that message across to a 20-year-old. Someone like me, I'm a great believer still in super. I still believe it's one of the best wealth creation strategies we have. But then you can speak to a 20-year-old. Well, is it going to change? Is it still going to be there? I need to put everything into my business. And this is where, kid you not, some of them are doing rings around, other people, or even myself, with success in what they're doing in their own businesses online. So each kind of generation has its own asset class as to what they're jumping in and what they're wanting. But I've always kept things pretty simple. And for me, it's save little, save often. Really investing in what you do know. And it doesn't have to be your house if that's what it is. If you do have a successful business and you believe in yourself, invest in yourself, regardless which way, always invest in yourself anyway. But, a property, pay it off if you can, obviously. Focus on building up your super in the long term. Every dollar you throw in is only being taxed at 15% instead of your marginal tax rate. You've still got the tax perks at this stage for when you're drawing it out.
How do you make super sexy for the younger gen, Effie?
Oh, just show you my statement. That's what I should do. No. I think we've got to link super to us. It is our bank account. I think once you click onto the fact that people log onto their bank accounts all the time and they see their pay going in, yes, pays in. Log on to your super and have a look at your super, especially have a look at it over the past 12 months. I mean, it fell down the market hit like 35%. It fell down to last year in March. And then there was huge panic with people's super. That's why I don't like it. Look at this and so on. If you haven't looked at it since then, have a look at it now. And I think once you can relate that it's your bank account, well, then that changes everything. Then you want to get interested in, okay, well, this is my bank account. What's it actually invested in? If you're 20, have you got room to dial up the risk? Maybe heaven forbid, maybe you're just in conservative, maybe in cash. Do you want to go into balance? You've got control. This is your money. And like I said before, believe it or not, you're going to get to my age soon and you're going to wonder, I wish I paid attention, because it's the easiest money sitting there, so long as they don't stuff it up. And I get that. And I get the concern about if the government tweaks it and changes it and so on. But as it stands right now, for most of us, it's one of the most effective wealth creation strategies we've got. Understand it's your money. It's nobody else's, your money.
Beautiful. Now, in part 3 in your book, Effie, you talk about ticking off life's milestones.
Yeah.
That's I think some of the hardest work that any advisor has to do is actually trying to get people to put in words or on paper.
Yeah.
What are their top priorities, right? Because we all have hopes and dreams, and organising those. So you've got buy a car, go on holidays, buy a house and pay for renos as examples. What are some of the sort of takeaways or ways in which, someone could be thinking about these things, and what's the best approach that you've seen?
Yeah. So look, first of all, definitely not a financial advisor. So what you're not going to find an actual blueprint here for your financial affairs. But what you will find is an action plan after each chapter. And we kind of, like I said, life moves fast. We want everything, don't we? And I've always said, for me, balance is bullshit, in the sense that even for myself as a working mum, trying to juggle everything, something has to go. And I know that you want to tick these things off. I do want to buy a house. I do want to buy an investment property. I do want to buy a car. I want to buy a car without getting a loan, if possible. I want to go on holidays. These are all things we all want. Now, there is a possibility, yes, you can have all this, but it's not just going to come to you. And without getting into a whole lot of debt, which you don't want to do, you've actually got to put a plan in place. So the idea here is that you don't need to read it from beginning to end. Pick your milestone. What is it that you want to achieve? Find your action plan. And there's a tool in there. And it could be as simple as, like, it's not rocket science here. A 12-month saving plan. I tell you exactly, you want to get $10,000 by when, then this is what you've got to do. And you can just see it and visualize it. You've got to do it. No one is going to help you here. And then if you do nothing, you're going to be in the same situation in 12 months' time where you are now. So you might as well do something. And I guess it takes the whole thing of, how do you buy property? How can I get property if it's an investment versus, and this is your area of expertise, rent vesting or buying it as a home? What do you look for? What are the costs? So it kind of throws everything at you with a checklist. People that need that nudge, just to get a bit motivated to do it.
Yeah.
I love that nudge concept.
Yeah, and writing it down. I mean, how often, like I've picked up notes that I found in the past of stuff that I've written down, goals that maybe 10 or 15 years old, and I go, wow, that seemed big at the time, and now I've ticked that off. So it's just this amazing power.
It's a procrastination sometimes, isn't it?
Of writing it down. So yeah, it's so simple.
Or tell somebody about what you're about to do.
I don't know about that.
Then you've got third party accountability.
Yeah, then you're accountable. No, you don't want that.
You really are on the hook. That's what I like about.
Keep them simple. So the beginning of this year, I'm not into kind of financial resolutions. I'm not doing anything like that. But I am into writing down what you're going to do. What are some goals here? And for me, it was very simple. From where I am at the moment and looking at what my partner does and how to diversify and balance, for me, it was 3 really simple goals, and I've stuck to it. I actually wrote it on a Post-it note, and it just sits in my diary at the top, so I always see it. And that is not only to salary sacrifice, which I've been doing, but to make extra contributions. So non-concessional contributions. I pay myself first. I do it by BPay, actually. I set up a BPay straight into my super. Happens. That was goal 1 for this year. Goal 2 was actually to keep drip feeding into the market, and did that no matter what the market was doing. Just keep drip feeding. And goal 3 was really simple, but it's the 52-week challenge. I put my kids onto it. I love it. So if there's no $2 coins in the house, kids and hubby, it's because I'm stealing them. It's in my wardrobe down the bottom. And I'm just filling up this Coke bottle because I know at Christmas time, bang, there's the presents. Don't have to think about it. They're 3 simple goals, and I literally have stuck that on my diary with a Post-it note, set it up, and just let it go. So each year I choose something very simple, 2 or 3 goals, and stick to it.
It's amazing. And again, it's the power of writing it down. Although maybe 10, 15 years ago, I said I wrote down that I'd like to do a podcast with someone with outstanding character, and I haven't found anyone yet. So if you know anyone, let me know.
Time to sub me out, bring it in.
I'm surprised you're in it today, actually.
There we go.
Lord, I'm going away for a couple of months, so who knows?
Yeah. Well, I'm only serious, you know that, mate. But hey, part 4 talks about think rich, be rich. Invest with $100 a week. That's you talked about drip feeding into the market. Can you expand on that a bit more, and maybe with a segue into invest with $100 a week?
Yeah. So we know the magic of compound interest. We don't have to tell that to people that want to kind of get a good return. But for those that don't know about it, usually when you're saving, you're doing most of the heavy lifting. You've got to pop that $50 in each all the time, and you're not seeing much growth. You're doing all the hard work. What you want is you want the money to do the hard work for you. And so this save little, saved often concept does that for you, in that your returns then start doing the heavy lifting. And usually around year 15, 10, 15, you start seeing your contributions versus the actual returns start getting halfway. So if you invested, say, $100 per week, by year 10 onwards, you can actually sit back and just say, well, my contributions are halfway, but the rest of it is actually made up by the compounding returns. And it'll get to the stage where that topples over. And then that's when things get exciting. Yes, it takes a while. But this is the whole thing. Nothing comes, easy in that regard. But when you drip feed that little amount, you don't even notice it. And I think where I get quite jealous of is that in my days, we didn't have these micro investing apps, or we didn't have the opportunity to jump into an ETF, with small amounts. Or I didn't even have an ETF when I was 20. So that's so.
Back when there were chalkies, it was a $25 transaction fee now, and then it got up to $100 in some cases. Like some brokers, you're still paying $100 for. Now you can do transactions completely free.
Well, and that's it. And this is the whole. So what shares is going to come. It's not here yet, or by the time you listen to this, maybe it's out. So that's a New Zealand-based kind of brokerage, fractional investment. You got Stake, that's US. You've got other brokerage now like Superhero down at $5 a trade. I believe zero with ETF. Okay, people are looking for different trades for all sorts of things. For me, I do want good research, and I could want, information. And so, you big brands obviously have that, and they can be around $10 to $20. Now, when it comes to investing small, fees are a big deal. And the reason being is that you don't want it to be more than, say, 1% of your investment. To invest in shares, we know you need at least a minimum parcel of $500. But if you're paying, say, a 2% fee or 1% fee on that, it adds up quite a lot. And you've got to buy in and buy out. So on a $500 investment, your return's got to be about 3 or 4% before you can break even with these fees. So that's why it's so important when you are looking at these micro investing sites that you do obviously read the prospectus and look at the fees compared to your balance. I think they're a great way to tiptoe into the market. And there's a lot of them out there. Have a look yourself. You've got Raise, they recently increased their fees. You've got Spaceship, you've got robo-advisors, of which I do sit on the board for InvestSmart, like InvestSmart, StockSpot's another one. There's so many. I guess what I want to try and say is there's no excuse in saying I don't have enough money to invest. You can invest with as little as $5. ComSet Pockets, minimum $50. Invest, I think, in 7 ETFs that are themed. Brokerage, I think, is $2. It's a great way to get in, get excited and see, and then, maybe then invest directly later or go see an advisor if you're not too sure.
Well, you started our chat with behavioural economists. It's setting up good behaviours. When you can trust yourself with a little, you can trust yourself with a lot. It's all about building up some repetition as well. And Ben sent me a link to a book on the weekend that I started reading. My version of reading is now listening to these days, but The Psychology of Money. And it was talking about Warren Buffett, and there's thousands of books that have been written about him and how he's been a genius. But he says the bit that people often forget is the magic sauce for Warren Buffett is not the latest tip or it's time. He's most of his wealth, Ben, correct me if after 60 years of age, and then after 65, it's just this mind-blowing amount of wealth that's happened after his 60th birthday versus.
But he started at 18, right?
Yeah, 19. So compounding has done most of the heavy lifting. Most, if not all, of the heavy lifting for Warren Buffett, and yet we're all looking for these little tips to see what he's doing to try and get it done in 5 years. So I 100% back up what you're saying. And Ben and I have had the privilege of interviewing a lot of people on this podcast, and the ones who have been doing it for 20, 30 years have got extraordinary exponential results from it, which is... And
also, for most of us, I'd love to think I'm going to come up with the next best app that's going to sell for billions or something. It's not for me. So for me, it's just keep it simple and be the best financial version that you can. And it's not that hard if you just jump in and do it. And for most of it is just that act of doing and investing in what we know and just doing it.
Yeah, you're a role model for consistency and discipline. I think you should be proud of that. Hey, I'm conscious of time because I'd love to chat with you all day. But part 5, you talk about what you've always wanted to know. But there was 2 in particular that got Ben and my attention. The first one was, should I buy now and pay lender's mortgage insurance or wait for a 20% deposit? That's 1. And 2, should I pay off my mortgage or invest?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go. I'll give you right now. Okay. So again, these are all the strategies and the tables that are in there. And you guys would know this insight and what's happening with the property market now, how exciting, how upsetting, depends on which side.
Which angle you're in.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're seeing now, obviously, is a lot of first home buyers thinking, hold it, I've spent the last 4 years saving for my deposit. And I'm now being told that, the market's gone up by 5 or 10%. And if you, depending on which expert you want to look at, the RBA's come up and said the next 3 years we're looking at property to increase by 30%. You get where I'm going here now. I save up my deposit, but the time I'm ready to buy, I'm out of the market again. So do I pay lender's mortgage insurance, which is 2% of the loan amount on average, or do I just keep on saving? And look, I would be hesitant to say this is the answer. This is definitely not. The scenarios in there assume things. They assume that the property market, if it goes up 15% and you bought here at this value, these are your options and this is what it will look like. So you'll see in the examples that in a great example, if it goes up 15%, you probably would have been better to pay LMI and jump in. If it doesn't, then you would have made a big mistake and lost some money in that regard. I think the key thing is, there are a lot of calculators online, maybe even speak to a property expert there, get your sums right, It's a big job to jump in if you are going to borrow at 5% only, an LVR of say 95. You are heavily geared. We are looking at right now that interest rates are at rock bottom, but we had, a major bank increase their fixed rate just the other day. So, these low rates aren't going to stay forever. So it's a case of take care. I get it. On another matter, I'm not a big fan of the cost of LMI. I don't like the fact that it's not portable. It should be portable. And I think we need an investigation into lenders' mortgage insurance. But look, putting that aside, I guess it's a case of do your sums, have a look. Are you in a good job? Is it stable? I mean, these are hard questions to answer because no one would have thought they would have lost their job 12 months ago. But a lot of us did. So that's the ways of doing sums on property before you jump in. The other one, investing versus
paying your mortgage.
Yeah, paying your mortgage. Again, get financial advice, but sometimes it's a case of just looking at straight tables, which I play at. We've got mortgage rates right now. Home loans are below 2%. Investment loans are below 3%. Returns on investment depends on where you're going. So look, if you are, I guess when you invest in your mortgage, it is a non-tax deductible debt, but it's guaranteed. I know I'm going to get that 2% return. It's going to be in there, depending on what age you are as well. If you think you can outperform 2% plus more, because you're going to have to pay tax on that as well when it comes out of the home environment, then what you're saying is that I can perform better than, say, 2%, if not more, say 4%. So you've got to find that investment. In some cases, speaking to several financial advisors, get your mortgage down to a healthy level and then start looking at building wealth outside of that as well.
Interesting. We obviously pro investing at that point because you can obviously get some leverage from that. But we're also very much pro horses for courses, right? Yeah. So risk aversion, where you're at, stage of life, all the things that you talked about. So
cash flow management, the whole piece, the future plans, working that into your models, and taking a long-term view.
It's doing those sums, isn't it? It's sitting down and just doing these sums, and that will inspire you going, wow, this could be potential. Then having a discussion with yourself, your partner, your advisor, expert, whoever, and saying, well, do I go down that path now?
Yeah, that's sage advice there. Thanks, Effie.
Hey, Effie, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. My final question for you is, it's your third book. Ben and I have written two. We've vowed never again, but lately we've kind of looked at each other and sort of nodded, are we going to go again? But you used to write a book every month at the magazines. That would have been a walk in the park for you, wouldn't it?
Look, I have to push out a story every day for today's show. And then what I do, I'm pretty good at coming up with stories, coming up with the yarn. No, I'm never going to write a book again.
Yeah, because you're at the tail end of this one, so we'll ask again.
I'll see you next year.
As always, Effie, you've dropped an amazing amount of wisdom for our community. I just want to encourage our TPC couches. If you want to listen to the full backstory for Effie, we interviewed her on the couch at the Melbourne Home Buyer Show way back in episode 105. There's heaps of gold in that. You should check that out. And also, we spoke to Effie about her money hacks back in episode 235. So you should definitely check those out. But as always, Effie, it's a pleasure to chat with you. The time flew. Can't believe it went so quickly. But thanks for joining us on the Property Couch.
Oh, it's an honour to be talking with you guys. Thank you so, so much.
Thanks,
and
Effie.
Folks, if you want to get a copy of Effie's book, we will have a link in the show notes. We certainly encourage you to check that out. There's some wisdom that comes from being in the market for as long as Effie has personally and professionally. You should check it out. But thanks again, Effie. We'll see you next time on the couch.
Thanks, guys. And any tips for cask wine, some good ones you were talking about, send them my way.
Coming right over. Actually, I don't drink, so I got nothing.
Oh, well, forget you, Ben.
Yeah, I'll have some on the way over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Effie. There you go, Ben. I said it when we were just chatting with it. Time flies when we're chatting with Effie. I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she's in the weeds a lot every day with her job on the Today Show, doing episodes each day and having a look at all of the components that are money, investing, finance, mindset, challenges, I've seen the airport show that she did and traveling and extra costs. And there's just so many different things that she's got her hands in. And to have that 20 plus years of experience and, instill that in this second book of hers is just also worthy of a read, right? It just reinforces some good principles, reinforces some great learning if you haven't already been exposed to this type of stuff. And remember, Bryce, knowledge is empowering. So get out there and get that knowledge so you can start to formalize your strategy with money.
Absolutely. And thanks, the power of a wonderful team. Emma from our team reminded me that in the previous conversation that we had with Effie, we talked about the polyester outfit and the cask wine. So it just goes to show I don't remember every single finer detail of every episode. But for those who have heard Effie for the first time, nice and fresh. Those of you that have heard all 3 episodes will go, you might have talked about that before. So there you go. Hey, I also wanted to highlight, I talked about the debt avalanche and the debt snowball within that discussion.
Yep.
And I want to make a really clear statement here. If you follow Money Smarts and you follow the system of Money Smarts, I think that debt avalanche is the way that you should go, which is basically paying off your most expensive debt first, because we've got a rules-based system that allows you to do that. When I'm talking about maturing in my thinking around the debt snowball, I'm talking about folks who are in money problems, debt problems. Money Smarts isn't even on their radar, and behavior is what got them in trouble in the first place. So I think we've got to counteract behavior to get them out of trouble. So I just wanted to make the distinction between that, because in the book we talked about, we didn't say it as debt avalanche, but we talked about that's the preferred approach. But if you've got that system, it works.
Yep.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, I think it's a good point, Bryce, because there is a group of people who have got themselves into a situation that is relevant to their decision making about taking on what might be considered discretionary debt, right? And if they've taken on that discretionary debt to fill a need in their lives at that time, then the debt snowball approach helps them with that psychology of money. It's not the vast majority of people, but there is a small minority of people who get themselves behind the 8 ball, and how they can potentially build a new, money muscle, so to speak, is to potentially try the debt snowballing way, where they're just feeling like they're making progress because something else in their decision making has not allowed them to be realistic about that spending, and that's how they've got themselves into that situation. We've got a lot more to talk about on this topic. We've got a few ideas around, some new content that we'll put out over the next couple of months and years and so forth around that, because it's really
TV, Ben.
Yes, there it is. It's really important to do that we will talk about being smart with money and falling behind the 8 ball and recognizing those people. There are also another group of people who might find themselves in a high level of debt through probably no fault of their own. And examples of that might be relationship breakdowns, loss of job, earning, changing careers or doing study, and they've got a debt position. So I think there is still more work to be done in this particular space. So I'm looking forward to us unpacking that in, the coming weeks and years and trying to, explain that to people so they can understand where they're coming from. Because the reality is, for those people who are in high debt positions, some of that was out of their control, but the ones who it was decisions that they made and justifications in their minds that were about what they thought were wants versus needs, right? So that's what we've got to work on. And I think we can do some breakthroughs for those people as well. But as you say, paying off the highest debt first is the money.
Most expensive debt first.
Most expensive debt first. And in a lot of cases, that's probably the credit card debt anyway.
Yes.
So in what Effie was talking about there in terms of that buffer, you're probably going to find that that's how you also get that little buffer as well. So we've got more to unpack in that space. So I think there's going to be some future discussions in that area.
But I just wanted it to land. Money Smarts devotees, debt avalanche.
Yep.
People who are in a world of pain around debt and don't know how to get out of it. Debt snowball, I reckon, is what you should consider. And then, of course, money personality. Wise, old owl. Are you the squirrel? Which one did you relate to? Which was really good. But as always, Effie, we appreciate you taking the time to join us on the Property Couch. You are one of the titans in the industry. As I said, she's written a book nearly every month doing the Money magazine. So she's been across a lot of stuff. And clearly, as the Today Show Money person, clearly shows her authority in the space. So thanks again, Effie. Hey, my life hack today is I keep a dustpan brush in the back of our car permanently. Because I live near the ocean, we're often always at the beach. But so get the kids on the back, get the brush, get the sand off their feet. They love it. It helps me get the wetsuits off and all that sort of stuff. But for those that aren't near the beach, the other day we're walking the dog. It was a dewy morning, and you're walking around in your nice runner's band, and then you get to the car and you realize you've got grass clippings all over you. So just get the brush out, dust it off, everything's good to go. So my little life hack is to encourage folks just to keep a dustpan brush in their car.
Well, not the full size one. Are you talking full size?
The tiny one, little, the dustpan and broom.
And where do you pick those up from? Just would a hardware store have them, or like a Bunnings or something?
Yeah. Have you got a dustpan and brush, Ben?
Yeah, but when you say the dust, like that, the household dust brush is,
the tiny little one that's about that big. I know that's not easy to translate on a podcast, but it's the little triangle, and you break a glass, you smash a glass in the kitchen, and
they're
brush.
Pretty big, but that size. So it's not a miniature one of that. It's just the normal dustpan brush.
Yeah, normal dustpan brush.
Got
yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, that's what I was curious about.
So what I haven't made allowance for here is you Collingwood folks. You might have you probably break a lot of stuff, so you probably get bigger ones than everyone else.
This is not a Collingwood thing. This is a Ben Kingsley thing.
Yeah. Well, I just like to link it, but So my life hack today is go and get one. They're not very expensive. Put it in the boot, keep it there, and then you are sorted. Now, particularly here in the southern hemisphere, as we're going into winter, if you're going for a walk, bushwalk, whatever it is, it will pay dividends. Ben, what's making property news?
Bryce, we've got a few things that are making property news. Probably the biggest show in town at the moment, outside of obviously the market going crazy, and we'll see some unbelievable numbers released next week, which will be absolute media fodder, that'll, in terms of property booming and now affordability is the problem. So we'll get to that next week. But this week we did see the responsible lending laws get debated, the release of the Senate inquiry report into that, and then ultimately got through the House of Reps, got into the Senate, but they've postponed it. So it's now been put on the back burner. And I want to come back to this conversation because it's going to be redebated in May in the Senate again. And I think it's really important that we regulate with common sense, not regulate to the lowest common denominator here. So I do want to talk to that story because whilst I understand the concerns of some consumer groups, and I worry about payday lending and all of that, and I think that should be certainly regulated because those people are vulnerable. For mortgages, the consumer groups, I think, are missing the point in the sense that if you're going to take out a significant debt to buy a house, you are going to change your behaviours, and we see that demonstrated time and time again. And we've got a default rate of less than 2%, sort of hovering around that 1.3 to 1.5. It is immaterial in terms of the grand scheme. So, do you want to regulate to make things more expensive? And that ultimately gets passed on to us in higher interest rates and less productivity and in the economy. So I think that there's something to be had in terms of advocating on behalf of the vast majority of Australians who will see a benefit out of a repeal of those laws, given that we've also got best interest duty in there as well. So that's one of the big news stories. The other one that I just want to highlight is in regards to the changes. Now, next week's show, we've got a deep dive into the reforms in Victoria in regards to the tenancy reforms. But I just want to let everyone know that in Victoria, New South Wales, and Western Australia, effectively at the end of this week, the moratorium on rental is then lifted. So as we're coming out, of the COVID scenario and the economy's moving forward. Now, again, we acknowledge those people who are still doing it tough, but we now have a situation where, like in example, in Western Australia, our good friend Damien Collins, who's the president there of REWA, the Real Estate Institute of Western Australia, is saying the consequences of what's just happened has meant that vacancy rates are less than 1%. So because there hasn't been a movement of people and things been happening, the market hasn't been able to regulate itself. So you're going to see higher rents in that particular market, right? So So I think there is going to be some management here, but let the market work itself back out again. And there are still some good opportunities for people in New South Wales, where the New South Wales governments have announced a 6-month cooling off period. So where there can be a payment program between landlord and tenant to get back into balance if there are any arrears from tenants in that particular place. And in Victoria, well, we're going to hear, I'm not going to talk about Victoria because there's definitely an imbalance that's going to be occurring in that particular market, which is ultimately going to lead to higher rents, which we'll get to next week.
We will get to next week. So we are giving you a little preview. Stick around for next week. Also, folks, great guests coming up to talk about all those changes in Victoria. But if you're not investing in Victoria, or you don't have property, come have a listen, because it might end up in your backyard. So it's important for you to be fully informed.
It's an excellent point, Bryce. I mean, we're seeing reform reviews happening in Queensland and also WA. And some of the reforms here just go too far. So, you know, if you're not letting your local member of parliament know your concerns, and once you listen to this story, you're going to see, holy moly, you know, I don't want that in my backyard. So, you know, ultimately it's going to be an interesting episode. Some of it welcomed, some of it sensible, but a classic case of imbalance occurring because one lobby group had too much influence on the government effectively.
There you go. Stick around next week, folks. Effie, we appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, folks. Hopefully that's been of benefit to you today on everything that we have covered. But until next week, Ben.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.
Hey there folks, Bryce Holdaway here. Before you go, if you're new to our community and only listened to maybe a handful of episodes, I thoroughly recommend that you go all the way back to episode number 1, where we unpack all of the foundations when it comes to property investing. Now, for those of you that might be a little bit time poor, I've got good news for you. We have a binge guide that you can download straight away, which summarizes the first 20 episodes where Ben and I unpack the foundational pillars of the A, B, C, D, and so much more. And you can get that straight away. If you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20, you can download it and consume it whenever you want. It's completely free and available now. And for those of you, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. Now don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20 and get your binge guide today.